Hi, welcome to Philosophy, Science, and Religion. My name is George Ortega. I'm here with Chandler Klebs, Mitch J, WSD, and Jamie. Thank you, WSD. So, all right, so this episode is going to be about the advances in technology that we can expect over the next decade and 2 and 3 and 4 decades that will vastly change life on the planet and in many ways make the world much more compassionate, more fair, and more pleasant for everyone. So like what I'd like to start with, since like most of us or all of us are vegans or vegetarians, these recent developments, there's a guy, his name is, what's his name? Peter, oh God, I don't know, but this guy, he runs a company. He's from the Netherlands, and he's pioneering this. He's already like, before it used to cost like about $500,000 to make a hamburger patty, right, in the lab, right? So over 4 years, they reduced the cost of that by 99%, and they're continuing to reduce it. And so he's estimating that in 5 to 10 years, we'll be able to grow meat, chicken, beef, pork in labs in such a way that, instead of, let's say, tens of billions of animals having to endure major cruelty and horrible torture every year, like for the beef, you would only have to have, let's say, a herd of 30,000 cows that could be treated very kindly, and basically they're just used for the stem cells of their muscles. It's actually just very little from them, is actually required, and then this very little muscle mass stem cells from them can just like create thousands and thousands of pounds of beef. So first of all, are you guys familiar with this?
I'm familiar with cultured meat somewhat, yeah, because it's a way to, give the meat eaters their burgers and whatnot and their steaks, but at the same time, we don't have to.
I thought it was some kind of cloning technique. That's not.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cloning technique in a way, if you think about it. Yeah. Yeah,
basically what they do is like, muscles. Basically, when we eat cows and chickens and all, we're basically eating muscles of these animals with some fat. And so like they've been able to like grow these muscles, in laboratory conditions. It's actually very easy. Anyone could actually, it's so easy, anybody could do it, in their home. They've figured out how to do that. And so again, this means that in 10 years, people who just can't fathom giving up meat because they just mistakenly think it's necessary to their health and nutrition and stuff,
or protein.
They'll have a very good reason to not, buy meat produced by the as a result of the abuse of animals.
Another thing to consider is that, there's the impact on the environment, right? We grow up getting accustomed to the taste of meat. And then we build this desire for it. It's in the brain, and it's hard to dislodge. But if there's a cultural shift, then people will grow up. Like, for example, vegan children grow up without any kind of desire to eat meat, without even needing this artificially made meat, because they won't know what they're missing, and they'll just enjoy all the cornucopia of other foods that already exist. I mean, the earth is so plentiful. There's so much stuff to eat that's amazing and delicious. There's really no reason for omnivores such as ourselves to be dependent upon meat.
Slaughtering animals,
yeah. And those nutritional arguments are completely fallacious. Like, people always, people will point to like B12 or something. Okay, that's one thing that's a little bit difficult, but you can just take a vegan multivitamin and get your B12, or eat a lot of beans and stuff. It's not a big deal. People like it's the end of the world. I'm not going to get B12. I'm going to die. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and B12 is cheap too. And it's a very good point, Mitch, that if you were never
as well, if I
Well,
remember right.
yeah, well, Mitch, it's a very good point that if you're not raised with a certain mindset and you're used to eating vegan from the time you're a child, then yeah, you won't know what you're missing. And so, like, I'm tired of the idea as if people's desire to eat meat is purely genetic, when it's not just genetic, it's the way they're raised.
Yeah, and I think also in health, it's not just that that people think they need meat to be healthy. Actually, there's a lot of evidence that the people who eat meat are those who are most at risk for these major diseases that kill people. If people went to vegan diets, vegetarian diets, they would be a lot healthier.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the synthetic meat it'll help people while they're still stuck in this mindset, thinking that they need meat. But I'm hoping that people will eventually realize they don't even need that. They don't need the synthetic stuff. Just like they don't need the real stuff, they don't need the synthetic stuff either, because there's plants.
Excellent. All right. Again, this in vitro meat is just one part of something that's, again, within 10 years, we might just see it everywhere in every supermarket at the same price that people pay for regular meat. But that's just one thing. I want to inform you guys. There's an app on phones, Android and iPad, called Overdrive, and it's basically it's hooked up to libraries. Like I have a New York Public Library card, New York City, right? And they have a vast collection of books. And the reason I'm mentioning this is if you download that app and hook it up to your local library or something, there's a book that begins to explain these major changes that are happening. And it's written by this guy, Ray Kurzweil, who is one of Google's top innovators. He's one of the top executives. He's just responsible for so many of the new ideas. He pioneered text-to-speech technology, and he wrote a book about 10 years ago, I think now, called The Singularity is Near. And basically the theme of that book, one of the major themes is by around 2047, in about 30 years, we will be able to, the computers that run, will be 1,000 times more intelligent than human beings. Okay, that's just one aspect. He said within 30 years, through either genetic engineering and or nano robots, nanotechnology, we'll be able to both reverse the aging process and halt it, so people no longer die of old age or illness. We would be dying out of, from accidents or something. So again, this is something that isn't, on the radar for most people. But when we begin to consider what these improvements in essentially artificial intelligence and computing processor speed and data and all that stuff, over these next decades, the advances that are possible, can truly revolutionize the planet, in ways that can essentially, I think, address across the board all these things that we're activist about.
Sounds good.
Yep, sounds good.
So again, the reason I'm mentioning this Overdrive app is because I listen to books. All right, so Kurzweil's Kindle edition of this book is like $18, and I'd rather just borrow it from the New York Public Library. Borrow it for 3 weeks, and you can keep borrowing it if you need to. I think there's probably used copies that you can get on Amazon for a few dollars, and a few dollars for whatchamacallit, shipping and handling.
Huh.
But
maybe
yeah,
I should start going to the library again.
Oh yeah,
I have it because the internet. What's the point?
Have you guys tried the Beyond Burger? They sell it at Whole Foods. It's really good. It's made from.
What's a Beyond Burger?
Yeah, it's made from pea protein isolate. It looks like a burger. It has the same sort of texture and consistency. It's a little bit expensive. I think it's like 5 to 6 US, and you only get like 2 patties or whatever. But I've tried it. It's delicious. It's amazing. Tastes just like a real
A
burger.
veggie burger.
It's not a veggie burger.
I actually tasted one of those veggie burgers at one time.
A
They're
veggie
actually
burger.
pretty good.
A veggie burger. Veggie burgers are good, but they're not. So if someone is trying to go vegan, and you give them a veggie burger in place of a real burger, that's not going to make them happy. It's going to make them really, really miss the taste of a real burger. This is an attempt to solve that.
No, because well, I tasted it. It didn't taste the same, but I didn't think it was bad.
Right. It's not bad, but it's not the same. It wouldn't satisfy that. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to bite into a juicy burger, this Beyond Burger solves that. It's like George is talking about the ones that are created in labs. Like, they create meat so there's like no pain. Okay, this isn't that level, but it's close to that level. It's very delicious. It's amazing and very satisfying. So you should, if you can find it in Whole Foods, you should look it up. It's amazing.
Yep.
It's not like a veggie burger. A veggie burger is just
Whole Food. See, the area I'm in, I'm nowhere near Whole Foods, and 2, Whole Foods are expensive as shit. Excuse my slang.
it's pretty expensive. I mean,
Yeah, actually, there's one. I go to Whole Foods for these vegan sausages that are actually they're really inexpensive. They're you get 4 sausages for $3.25, but the key thing is like that each sausage has about 26 grams of protein, which is a lot more. Most veggie burgers will have, if you're lucky, maybe 16 grams, sometimes 10 grams, sometimes much less. So, like, I agree, Whole Foods is generally very expensive, but with these particular products, sometimes you get a good deal.
Yeah.
Chandler, you were
I do agree with you guys that it's a complete myth that you can't get protein from vegan diets. Of course you can. Like seeds, for example, they have a lot of protein, don't they? So
Yeah, and elephants eat only plants.
yeah, so do gorillas.
And giraffes.
Yeah.
Gorillas are muscle.
I think hippos too.
Yeah, I think so.
Chandler, talk to us about the hedonistic imperative.
Well, I mean, I'm no expert on it. I just know that it's about eventually eliminating pain from our biology.
Yeah, all right. So, like, with advances, like, one of the things that Kurzweil explains in this book is that even today, they've developed, because of artificial intelligence, computer programs that are as accurate in diagnosing illness, based on the certain symptoms that are inputted into it, as are doctors. Okay, so, like, in other words, in terms of medicine, the implications. There's a field of chemistry called computational chemistry. And what that's about is that rather than having to, like, conduct thousands of experiments with different chemical agents and different variables and different combinations, etc., they can input all that information into a computer and save themselves the time and the effort and all, and the computer comes up with what the results would be with each variable. So, all right, relative now, guys, what we care about, the reason we care about animals, the reason we care about people, about fairness, about, is because we want people to be happy, to live happy lives and to not suffer. That's our bottom line, both people and animals. So there's this guy, another guy, his name is David Pearce, a British guy, who actually is on our side on free will. You can, if you Google him, you'll see a video of him, his refuting free will. He wrote a book that Chandler has, is aware of. I read it a while back. It's called The Hedonistic Imperative. And in it introduces the idea that with all these advances in artificial intelligence and in nanotechnology, genetic engineering, I'm guessing we're within a few decades of maybe not completely eliminating all pain. I think that will happen, I think, before 2100. But within the next several decades, imagine, like, their engineering a pill. I mean, again, granted, there's parts of our world we need to like make sure that everybody's fed, everybody's cared for. But all right, actually, I want to bring that in because I think a lot of times, a lot of these conservatives, these people who don't care, I think they don't care because they're not happy enough. They're kind of discontent, and they feel that like to help people like would be at their expense. So what we have the capacity of doing through the nanotechnology and genetic engineering and these artificial intelligence is coming up with like a pill that everyone would take every morning to basically make everybody much happier than they are now. And the thesis, let me hear what you guys think of the thesis, is that as people become happier, they're going to naturally become more compassionate. And again, this may happen within the next 2-3 decades.
Yeah, but George, there's another problem about like technology. Like, automation is going to be taking up the job market. Like they said that a lot of jobs are going to be automated.
Yeah.
In a few decades.
Remember that thing? When
Jamie, you want to know something?
Yeah.
Go ahead, WSD. I'm sorry.
Remember when y'all said earlier how automation's going to take over? Well, capitalism, that's going to be a huge problem if capitalism's still in place.
All right, guys, here's the thing. Like, like in today's world, when there's high unemployment, we think that's a bad thing, okay? Mm-hmm. In tomorrow's world, it's going to be a good thing because, in other words, like, yes, and actually the people who have to worry the most aren't the manufacturing people, they're the people at the higher level, these like accountants and stuff, and just like, these, even doctors and, because the artificial intelligence isn't going to be able to, like, for example, like weld things together. Well, I guess the robots can do that, but basically, I think my point is that that basically we're going to be able to not have to work as much. These robots, these computers are going to be doing the work for us, and so like that will be a blessing. Well, so many people like don't have time for their families, don't have time to enjoy themselves because like they've been like cultured into like working 50, 60-hour work weeks and just like being so ambitious. So that's
80,
something else.
Or 78 hours to 80.
Here's the problem with being made unemployed, George, right? What replaces their income when they no longer have a job? That's the problem. That's why basic income needs to come, man.
That's
right,
when,
naturally.
That's
and Jamie,
why
yes,
we need to get rid of capitalism. That's
exactly.
going to be a problem in the long run.
Exactly. As we get rid of jobs, we absolutely have to ensure that everybody's provided for. That would be part of it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But are you guys familiar with any other? Because like I've just begun to research this futuristic information, within computers and medicine and all. Have you guys begun to follow this? Because like this,
I've followed some of it, like cultured meat and stuff. I mean, Sam Harris talked about this a while back. He said it's getting cheaper to manufacture synthetic meat. I mean, and I get the health issue, Chandler, right? There are questionable, health aspects about, eating meat. However, isn't the goal to save the animals? I mean, isn't that more important than what you just said? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the real goal. And while I don't think that the synthetic meat goes far enough because it doesn't solve all the other industries that harm animals, because it's not just the meat issue. At least it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, at least we can agree to that point. I mean, as long as it saves animals, we're making progress. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and Chandler, for example, they use animals to test out like hair shampoos and cosmetics and stuff, right? And one of the criticisms that vegans have is that like a lot of those tests are simply not necessary, But another part of this like computational chemistry is that I imagine that like rather than using animals as like the victims of this, to really afflict them with these agents and these products and see what happens, as we do now, that's another thing that I believe, within several decades can be transferred to computers. A computer can analyze the constituents of whatever product it is and determine, how safe or how harmful it would be for humans to ingest, to have in our bodies or whatever.
Yeah, and furthermore, I would argue if they need to test anything on anybody, they ought to at least have humans who agree to be tested on it, rather than pick on those animals.
But do you see the overall theme of this? Like, the things are happening that don't get much reported in the mainstream press that really within several decades can vastly transform the world as we know it today.
Can I just make a point, George Ortega, and you might find this interesting, but isn't it possible in the future to use supercomputers to determine, like, cures and, treatments for illnesses and whatnot? Because, let me explain. If they mapped out the genetics of, like, every species, right, every single species that are on the planet, and every single combination of DNA that there is, right, and they used, like, I don't know, some sort of, like, computer program that determined what was the best treatment for said illness, that would be better to use than hurting animals, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, and you know what they're working on? Let's say, like, one of our organs isn't working as well as it should, right? So they're developing these nano robots that actually, let's say you wear a coat, so they actually enter your body through the skin. It doesn't even hurt, right? And then they actually take the place of these organs. Like, if it's a liver, it'll purify our blood even better. According to this book by Kurzweil, our organs, our natural organs, aren't generally that effective at the job they do. We can actually engineer these nano robots to do the job of our natural organs, but much, much better.
What, filter toxins out of our bloodstream and whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be efficient then. Yeah, like if they used machines that were more effective in our organs. I mean, think how long we'd live with that. Less free radicals, longer lifespans. Yeah.
I mean, and I actually think, I think in terms of, like, politics. This may be like around 2050 or so. I mean, who knows? It might be sooner, but, like, basically right now they have, like, for example, computer programs that could, like, just beat any chess player in the world, whatever, no contest. But, like, there's going to be are you guys familiar with the Turing test?
Of course.
All right. So, yeah. So, for those who don't know, the Turing test is like, a computer has achieved, human intelligence when, like, you're interacting with one of these computers and you can't tell whether you're interacting with a human being or a computer. Okay. That's how intelligent the computer is. So, like, by and that's what the singularity is about. In other words, that's what Kurzweil and other people believe is going to happen around 2045, 47. Yeah. So when that happens, think about this. The problem with our politics isn't necessarily our political symptoms. That's not the major problem. The major problem with our governments, with our politics, is that they are run by people who are corruptible in terms of taking bribes and lobbying and all this stuff, right? So imagine a world, maybe with this resource-based economy, whatever, but where we have a democracy, right? But instead of we as a population voting for people to govern us, we are voting for, like, let's say a computer system created by Apple is running against a computer system created by Microsoft, and the third candidate is a computer system running created by Google, who are uncorruptible and vastly more intelligent than the smartest politician we can think of.
Yeah, I was talking about that to some good associates on Twitter a while back. I mean, if AI got advanced enough, we could actually use that to be a sort of government, couldn't we, Chandler?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be cool. Of course, it always comes down to how well do you trust the people who made the machine.
Exactly.
And Chandler, that's the key thing. In other words, we have to come up with algorithms, with the way of like programming these computers that and it's going to be difficult, because basically we have to, like, right now with viruses and stuff, we have to always keep a step ahead of the people who create the viruses. But once we've, if we can safeguard that kind of a system, we can program these computers to be vastly more compassionate than we are, vastly more effective at coming up with solutions, and then not corruptible. Yeah.
Yeah, at least you can't bribe them.
Yeah, but it's like Chandler said, it depends on how they're programmed, because we don't want an AI that's programmed too conservative, you know what I mean?
So let me ask you something. All right, so let's tie this podcast in with the last one. I think we were kind of thinking that, some people on the planet, they're just callous. They don't care. And their parents didn't care, their grandparents didn't care. It's kind of like, it may take decades for us to get them to care. Whereas, and then that's kind of like trying to fix a problem, over decades. Whereas what we're talking about now is kind of like developing and enhancing and speeding up new technologies that will, in indirect ways, whatever, solve the problems of these people that are for example, in vitro meat, solving the problem of callousness toward animals. Do you think that this approach, if we're going to be activists, maybe rather than trying to get people to understand that there's no free will and trying to get them to be more kind and compassionate, maybe if we put more of our energies into understanding these new technologies and promoting them in a way, in an effort to advance them, we might be helping the world more by shifting our strategy.
And I want to say something to WSD. WSD, I know you hate Apple and stuff, but not all the people at that company are corrupt. Some of them are just, following orders.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just stop even liking that company. Oh yeah, I meant to mention something about you. I was watching this one documentary where they said by the year 2021 we might actually become the machines.
Are you guys familiar with? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Could I just say something? I don't mind government becoming AI as long as it's done right, and I think Chandler agrees with that sentiment. It has to be done in such a way that it doesn't hurt people.
Absolutely. Are you guys familiar with how soon we can expect driverless cars to hit the roads?
Oh yeah, like Tesla cars. Yeah. I mean, they're making automated cars now, aren't they?
Yeah, I've heard within 5 or 10 years. Now, because we lose a lot of people, every year on highways, in car accidents and stuff. And there's a lot of people get hurt and stuff.
I know.
And so
trust me, I know. People on the roads, I got no offense to people that drive, they drive like fucking idiots. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, so with this new technology. With these new technologies, accidents will be virtually, extinct. I mean, there won't be any accidents anymore, or very, very few.
Yeah, well, that's the advantage of AI driving your car. I mean, it's kind of like autopilot on an airplane. That's reliable, and that's why they use it on airplanes, don't they, George?
And again, so
they don't use it to land.
This also, you guys understand that right now here in the United States, we have all these landline phones, right? We've got cables running everywhere, right? But in South America, in parts of Asia and Africa and stuff, they don't have the infrastructure. That's too expensive. So that now these smartphones are just almost all over the world. And so basically that's allowing these poorer countries to get more, integrated into the global economy. You can have a farmer in some very poor village with a cell phone knowing what the prices are of whatever he is growing to be able to help, navigate his business. So again, this technology has vast implications just toward finally ending poverty.
Yeah, I mean, if it's done right, then yes, we could use technology to end poverty. I mean, I'm all for it as long as they do it in such a way that it advantages everyone. Yeah. And I wonder what it means for the criminal justice system in the future. I mean, would it mean better surveillance for prison systems and that?
Oh, Jamie, that's perfect. All right, something I've researched over the decades was lie detector technology. Now they call it truth detection, whatever, but it's the same thing. So basically, what I've learned is like the technologies we have today are between 80 and maybe 90, 95% effective in determining whether somebody's telling the truth or not, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine in a couple of decades, if we reach 99, 100%, through eye movements.
There's no such thing as 100, but
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, who knows? But like, we have a technology that allows us to do. Now, the problem today is like, even with the most trained people, like police people and judges and stuff, their average rate of knowing who's telling the truth or not is about 50%. We are really bad at this. So in other words, you would have, and this isn't just for the criminal justice system to determine who is telling the truth or not, but this is also for our politicians, to when they're giving a speech to like have them hooked up to one of these lie detector tests, so we know they're not lying to us. And naturally, yeah, with the criminal justice system, I think, I mean, this isn't really technologically related, but our work on free will, when people finally understand that nobody's to blame for anything, then the criminal justice system will be so much more compassionate.
Yeah, and I suppose the prison systems will become sort of like mental hospitals in a way, like when people, start to accept that. When we see criminals as, how should we say, mental patients. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, like, for example, some people, unfortunately, the part of their brain that deals with empathy, for some people, it just doesn't work that well. I think they have antisocial personality disorder or whatever. So, like, part of this medical technology is like through nano robots or genetic engineering, we could actually fix that. We could organically fix that so they do empathize. And like people who have like, problems with hostility and anger, we can like, just the medical advances that can apply those. Some of us are like addicted to gambling or addicted to like, to alcohol and stuff, just the kinds of changes that are possible as we begin to kind of like just integrate these computers into our bodies.
I mean, that would be awesome. And if we could actually use computers or recent advances in medical science to cure addiction to substances, like addiction to heroin or crack and stuff, I mean, that would be marvelous, wouldn't it, Chandler?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, less addicts, the better.
Hey, guys, unfortunately, I'm going to have to head out of here, but I enjoyed the conversation. See you guys later.
All right.
Free will doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's incoherent.
Glad to talk to you, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Mitch.
All right. So, like, I want to tie two things together. Again, like, we were talking last podcast on how to, like, be better activists, be kinder to ourselves, and more effective by overcoming this, these, the anger and frustration and stuff. And so, like, what I've found over the last, I've just begun to explore this futurist stuff about a month ago, in more detail, especially, as we learn about what's coming down, the pike in the next several decades. I think we can become much more optimistic through knowledge, not through hope and faith or just expectation, but through actual knowledge of what's happening today. And that can, I think, help us to become less angry and much more hopeful. And the other thing is, like, in terms of the growth that we can expect, again, it's going to be exponential, meaning that, like, instead of a linear pattern that it takes, took 100 years to go from, let's say, the steam engine to the car and the car to whatever.
And the maglevs. Japanese have the maglev trains now, don't they?
So. Yeah, they're working on maglevs now.
So
they're
the
trying
rate
to get them off rails.
Yeah. Yep, the rate of progress is increasing, year after year of year. I think every 2 years or processing speeds of computers double or something like that. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm gonna be astounded if in 50 years they finally defend the flying car. Now, the way people, they make it automated, okay. But the way people drive, I wouldn't put them behind a flying vehicle.
And the way smartphone technology, George Ortega, is incredible as well. I mean, every year your phone is obsolete, because they always bring out a new model of an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy or something like that. They have like better processors, better cameras, better software.
Yeah, you know what we might want to, like, as a group, begin to investigate. Which of these technologies are most relative to creating a fairer, more compassionate, kinder and better world? As opposed to just like, fine, we have cars that fly, but that doesn't help the animals,
Yeah.
Well,
some things are more important than others.
Yeah, of course they are. But I would hope that a resource-based economy happens. But here's the thing, Channer. I mean, it doesn't seem likely that a resource-based economy would happen, Not with the way things are going now with people's value systems. Our technology is fine, George, no doubt about that. That's impressive. But the morality and our ethics, that's what's messed up at the moment,
Well, yeah, Jamie, and what makes me hopeful about the resource-based economy is that even though people are in denial about climate change, eventually, whether it's like this decade or the next one or after that, eventually we're going to have to face it. And when we face it, we're going to realize that the entire world has to change. In other words, we can't do our part if China doesn't do their part. China does their part and we don't. The whole world has to be involved in this.
Agreed.
And so, yes, and that. So in other words, like
when Donald Trump pulled out the Paris climate deal agreement, I mean, Europe is already on board with this. It's just that Donald Trump is just that much of an idiot that he doesn't. He doesn't want to cooperate on anything, man.
Right. Well, I think Donald Trump may have helped us by scaring the hell out of people. People who never thought that somebody like that could get elected. So maybe Trump's, is not going to get reelected. And maybe after that, people are finally going to wake up to the need to be more involved in what happens to our government, to prevent people like Trump from ever, leading us again.
Yeah. And the Electoral College needs to do their job next time because, their job was to prevent people like Trump from getting into power in the first place. Yeah, I mean, so, but they failed at that.
But again, I guess the major theme of this podcast is like there's stuff that's so much stuff that's under the radar that is destined within several decades to make the world so vastly more improved from the way it is now that it just gives us a great, very powerful reason to remain optimistic, to be optimistic. And I'm very curious. I've gotten curious. I want to look for other books and articles about what else is going on.
Yeah. I would hope that we get to the resource-based economy because in the end, if we got there, if we ever do get there, Chandler, with automation doing jobs that people dislike doing or jobs that were dangerous, for example, nuclear power plants, I mean, radiation can kill you, so you want machines to do that instead of humans, obviously. If we got to that point, George, our world would be so much better. Only on this condition, if the most vulnerable people were provided for, so that they wouldn't starve to death.
Well, absolutely. We've got to get to the idea that we've got to evolve beyond social Darwinism. We've got to understand that. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Cooperation is better than competition. Yeah.
But again, Jamie, especially for you, since I started, learning this stuff about what to expect, I've gotten, I was pretty disheartened, following November. But now I'm much more optimistic. To the extent we become more optimistic, we don't have to get so angry. We don't have to get so frustrated because we know that it's just a matter of time. We know, and it's like, it's not like we have to wait 100 or 200 years for this to happen. We have to wait 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, I've been seeing stuff in documentaries and recent articles. I mean, I showed Chandler one of them, like methane being released from the Arctic, which is going to accelerate climate change to the point where people are going to have to take action, because if they don't, then we're not going to have much of a planet left in within a few decades to a few centuries, like people's children or grandchildren will inevitably suffer. If it doesn't extinct the human race, the death toll would still be large. Like, it will be in the millions to billions, even. You know what I mean? Because of viral illnesses that become more common. Parasites, malaria. That's going to be more widespread. I think you talked about that one time, George, didn't you? About disease vectors that will spread more quickly.
No, I know that's one of the biggest dangers that most people aren't aware of. And then it's also like water is becoming more scarce because of the livestock industry. Like almost all the water that's used on the planet is used for livestock. So much more than is used for other causes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and guys, that's part of what got me depressed, is just realizing how bad climate change is, and realizing that, I don't think we're going to even make it till 2050. I don't think we're going to make it till that year, because I think the human race will probably end up extinct, or very few survivors, and I'm just afraid that the whole...
Or it's going to be Mad Max, yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't turn into Hunger Games or something stupid like that,
Right, and the other thing is like, one good thing about the global economy is that, like, before, like in World War II and World War I, they could afford to have these world wars because actually people made a lot of money during them, right? Now, in our world today, we can't afford for other countries to fail, because if they fail, we fail, our economies and all. So basically, the rich people are coming to understand that, we either sink or swim as a group, and you can't, they're not going to be able to be protected from the ravages of climate change. We either fix it for everyone or we all suffer it.
Yeah, there's only so much denial you can have before the truth finally catches up with you, George. Eventually, they will have to face the harsh reality, either cooperate and fix the problem, or suffer. It will affect them too, inevitably.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what I try and tell people. Even the oil company CEOs, even they'll suffer if they don't do anything about it. They have to stop being ignorant, man. They have to stop being in denial.
And actually, Jamie, all right, the thing, pulling this computer stuff back to where we started, or the last podcast, a lot of the problem is that people, their conscience isn't all that strong, right?
Yeah.
And we can't blame them. Fine, they don't have a free will, but it's not like just that we could actually like make people happier through genetic engineering and nano robots and biotechnology, chemistry. We can actually, I think, make people better, activate their conscience somehow so they finally get it, so it doesn't take 20, 30 years for them to be able to make that shift.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get that point, George, but it goes back to that technology versus ethics and human values and all that stuff, Like, it's like Jack Fresco said in one of the Venus Project documentaries, our values have not kept up with our technology. We still have primitive values. We still value non-human animals less than us. We still value them as less worthy of life than ourselves. That's a problem in society, and that's what leads to a lot of animal cruelty,
Yeah, and here's an interesting thing is that, like, sometimes, like, my fear, like, on one hand, I'm thinking, the human race will probably go extinct very soon, but at the same time, I think that's almost better than human race continuing forever and torturing the other animals. So I kind of go back and forth on that. I'm not sure which is better. Not that I can...
Unless we progress to the point where animal cruelty becomes virtually non-existent. Yeah.
Right, and then Chandler, basically, if we put things in perspective, whether we destroy ourselves or not, the universe has been around for almost 14 billion years, and like who knows how much longer it'll last. Our sliver of humanity, of sentient life, of life on the planet, is just a small, segment of this reality. So actually, it's like, it makes me curious in terms of what post-human, post-life reality is going to be about. I guess it's beyond our ability to understand, but that kind of like puts things in perspective, allows us to have this Buddhist non-attached view of reality that we enjoy it, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah, I wish I could see it that way, but it doesn't help me very much.
Well,
Yeah.
Chandler, how do
Really
you address it? How do you address the future? What do you say to yourself to feel good about the future?
Well, what's interesting about it is, like, I don't feel very good about the future because I don't really think there is much of a future for us anyway. So I'm trying to just live in the now and be happy now in some way with the short time I have, rather than looking, 50, 60 years into the future that I don't think is going to even happen.
All right, and that makes sense. It's like, the Serenity prayer, the serenity to accept the things we can't change. And again, eventually, like there was an ice age, an asteroid is eventually going to hit us, that one of these super volcanoes like in Yellowstone or some other ones are going to erupt, and like, that's the reality on our planet. So we kind of like have to accept it and enjoy each day as we live it. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like
Unfortunately.
Kind of like that movie Bucket List, like where there was these two old guys that knew they were going to die soon, so then they did all this crazy wild stuff that they always wanted to do. Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I guess, Chandler, why don't you end this episode? And I guess I want to get going. Nick is finally going. He was late, but he's going to be here in a few minutes. So.
All right.
But
okay. So, any last words, anybody, before we end this?
I don't know if y'all heard it, but it was a background song. Make a change.
Oh.
I think it was
by Michael Jackson.
No, Tupac.
Oh, okay. But just the one thing I want to say is, like, to encourage us to get informed about these new technologies and how fast they're developing, to give us, more optimism. It could be an optimism based on information.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've been listening to Philosophy, Science, and Religion, and we've been talking about some advancements in computers and technology and stuff that may improve human society in the future. And we're not sure how it's all going to happen, but these are things we may be able to look forward to. If nothing else, it's entertaining to discuss the implications of these things. So this was a good talk, everybody. And so I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope our listeners enjoyed too. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Stay safe!
Yeah!